because I do 1,300 crunches and sit-ups 4 times a week.
What's a dose? Can you translate for us?
Winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Ernie Els.
All right, guys. Well, we are back to put a bow on what has been an incredible 6 weeks. Super stoked once again to have Jerome back with us on the Go Track, South Africa's unofficial #1 golf podcast, where we only talk about rugby. Jerome, nice to have you back. There's a lot has happened since we were last together, including your sister's wedding.
Yeah, geez, thanks for having me back on, guys. It feels like a lifetime ago now. I did manage to watch the game, and on the Sunday I asked my sister, how did the wedding go? She said, yeah, everything was absolutely excellent. Except I just wish the rugby had started a bit later. So, yeah, but it was.
Was the dance floor as empty as we predicted it would be?
It was. But I sort of set up. Well, no one saw me setting up, but I set up quite close to the dance floor, so try to make it inclusive, that we were still part of the job. Disappointing result though, but geez, we've come a long way since then.
Yeah.
Was that the Ireland game?
That was the Ireland game, yeah.
Cheapers, it does feel like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it really was. Carl, how are things going on your side? It feels like a lifetime since I spoke to you, which was just before the semi-final. So I feel like we've lived a couple of lives since then.
Yeah, I think I've spent every waking second of the last few days just watching the Springboks arrive and watching Rassie in tears and Cheslin giving medals away. I mean, it's as good as it can get.
Yeah, I think following Philipsa on Instagram is quite entertaining as well. He seems to be having a serious jaw. I think he's still in his kit. I think he's had.
Oh, I saw Cheslin Colby, he's still got all his strapping.
Yeah, I saw that, and I looked closely, and I was like, dude, did he re-strap himself? Or is that his original strapping from Saturday? Did he fly back in the strapping?
For sure, even his shoulders are still strapped.
I couldn't believe that.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah,
I think that's absolutely
incredible
brilliant
stuff.
I wonder what that flight was like. Coming back, because from what I understand, they were on like I think it was like
Emirates.
a dedicated.
Emirates, yeah.
Was it a dedicated Emirates flight, or was it? I don't know whether it was a private one or whatever, but must have been. Yes, it must have been rowdy. There must be some stories from that flight. My brother-in-law actually. I can't find it here. My brother-in-law actually sent me. He's a pilot for an unnamed airline which operates in that area. But he sent me the code. The air traffic controllers had assigned. They assign a special code to each flight as it comes into their airspace, and the code they had assigned was 1112. So basically like 11, 12,
Yeah.
Which cool. I thought which was pretty awesome. But I mean, obviously guys, if you've tuned in to the Go Track this week, we're probably not going to talk about golf this week. There's probably a good chance we always try and talk about a little bit of golf, even when we talk about other sports. But I reckon tonight there's a very good chance we're not going to talk about any golf, which I think is appropriate. We're certainly going to have a massive breakdown of the Rugby World Cup and the game, and just get some guys' reactions.
Before you carry on, maybe just to have some kind of golf. What I was quite disappointed about during this World Cup. Like there were so many lacquer, because you always talk about like rugby growing and all that, and a big part of it is seeing other big celebrities or other famous sportsmen in the crowd. Like when the French were playing, a lot of their soccer team was there, and then obviously had Roger Federer and Djokovic and Dricus du Plessis and all of those. And I thought one thing, and maybe they were, but I didn't notice them, is they were no South African golfers, no Ernie, no Louis. Unless I got it wrong.
I did see a few guys. I can't even remember who they are now, but I saw a few guys on Instagram and that obviously celebrating, like Eric van Rooyen and some of the unpopular
the lesser known.
But,
That's a really good point, right. Actually, Jerome.
I didn't see Ernie. I think Retief Goosen was there, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't see Ernie.
Look, they could have been there, like I say, but they definitely...
Obviously, if Gary Player was there, we would have known.
Yeah,
probably
for sure.
Would have done a dance on the field or something.
100%.
I tell you what, I'm actually, now that you bring that up, I'm wildly surprised that Ernie wouldn't have been there. I mean, he is
Ernie especially
crazy. The other thing it talks to is that we don't actually have that many famous golfers anymore.
That is true. That is true.
So, and most of them are not recognizable. So, actually, well, I mean, now here we are saying I'm not going to talk about golf, and we're talking about it, but we are recording on Wednesday, the 1st of November, and if I'm not mistaken, Carl, it's Gary Player's birthday today.
Oh wow! It is.
So and shout out to the Black Knights.
If you follow any kind of golf memes or golfers or anything like that, your Instagram feed will have Gary Player all over it. You can't miss it. So I look forward to getting that video circulating again of him doing that leg chop thing at some party, which is the ache is painful, but
how old is he,
Mr. Player? Who cares?
I'm certain he'll be releasing some sort of birthday video today. Not 100% sure.
Doing 20 squats and 30 push-ups.
Yeah, showing his six pack.
But shout out,
chopping chip and dip packets out of children's hands. What a job.
I actually haven't seen him do any shout out to the Springboks, but I'm sure it's coming. So shout out to Gary Player. So listen, guys, just what are your sort of initial thoughts, Jerome? Just sort of first reactions, thoughts, sort of digesting the last couple of days and obviously the last couple of weekends.
Yeah, geez, it's been an emotional roller coaster. I mean, I don't think there's any other way of putting it. I think all three of those quarterfinal games were just so close. 1 point in it, and could have gone either way, right? We could have been out in the quarters, could have been out in the semis, could have lost on Saturday. The margins are so small, and played some brilliant teams. The French were incredible. I mean, those first 30 minutes were just insane, and we were hanging on by a thread. And we did some good things. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that Wellington game in 2018, when we did the turnaround, where, we had very few opportunities, but we just took each one and just hung in there. The English game, look, I didn't expect it to be that close, I must say. I thought England would be decent. I mean, a lot better than how Argentina fared against New Zealand. But I thought, we'd be fairly comfortable. But, we probably missed the trick a bit in terms of not rotating our squad. Who am I to say, right? I'm not a double World Cup winning coach. So, but with Rassie and Jacques being so big on this rotation thing, and being a whole team and all of that, I would have thought they would have just shuffled a few guys around, not change the whole team, just change a few things, put in Visser at 8, that kind of stuff. Just freshen it up a bit. But anyway, we live that's irrelevant, right? We went on to beat the All Blacks, and it was a hell of a game. Could have gone either way. They missed a few kicks. And if you think about it, we were on the receiving end of a couple of these close games last year against France and Ireland. We could have easily won both those games. And this time we got the rub of the green and we got over them. So, yeah, just absolutely stoked. The liver's taken a bit of a pounding in the last few weeks,
My goodness,
especially that Sunday night game quarterfinal. The Monday was a bit tough. But yeah, just incredible. I mean, if you think 2015, I'll never forget watching the semi-final against the All Blacks at Twickenham and kind of just being almost hopeless, thinking, geez, no one's ever going to beat this New Zealand team ever again. We've got no hope, like it's just down in the dumps, right? And then if you told me that we'd be sitting here 8 years later and we've won back to back, I'd tell you you're absolutely mad. You're eating your shorts, So yeah, just it's been incredible to be part of it and watch it, and yeah, it's just been great.
Carl, what's I mean, we're obviously going to dive into a whole bunch of different things, but I mean, just what are your what's been floating around your head lately besides all the negative media?
Well, I mean, the negative media is it's for a reason, I guess, which is a good thing. I mean, we're basically just collecting French, English, and New Zealand tiers, and we'll be doing so for the next 4 years.
Love
but yeah, I mean, Jerome pretty much, I think livers took a beating, but I think our tickers took a beating as well. I mean, my heart in all of those games it was just insane. I mean, what they did to us in that semi-final was actually unreasonable. We should have absolutely pounded that English team, and I agree. I think maybe that French game took it out of us a little bit more than I originally thought. But yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. And as you say, I'm sure we'll do a deep dive. But I mean, that France game was, it followed. The night before was obviously Ireland, New Zealand, and everyone was saying it's the greatest World Cup game ever. And then France, South Africa came, and I think it took that mantle. And it was an outrageously epic weekend, which obviously you would know full well, Terence, because you were at both of those games in person. But yeah, it was quite interesting for me that the French game. We definitely, I think we weren't the better side. Not that we were, a horrible side, but they were better than us. There's no doubt. We hung on. We found a way to win, like championship teams do. But what was quite remarkable for me in that game was that we took all of our chances, because it was something that in the build-up to the tournament, the Springboks were being criticised for, and for good reason, is that we used to sit on goal lines and we just couldn't get over,
The Irish game, that French game we took. Sorry, Hoff, but the Irish
case in point, yeah, 100%. And we took every opportunity in that French game, and then, going to the final, for all the talk of, Manie Lebok's kicking is going to lose us a World Cup, it ends up being the All Blacks missing kicks that got us over the line at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, epic. I think we mentioned in the last pod with Jerry that 2019 wasn't meant to be the World Cup that we won. It fell into place. This was the one that we were meant to win, and we've won it. So, I mean, Rassie, Jacques, whoever you want to give the credit to, the players, it's been an epic tournament, and the most epic World Cup to win because of the teams that we had to beat to get there, and because of the amount of teams that could win this World Cup. So yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah, I think just to add, I think it's sorry T, but just to add, I think it's definitely our best world. Well, 95 was probably close. I think it's way ahead of 07 and 19. 95 is probably there and thereabouts, but maybe even a bit better in terms of like technical rugby. I think it was just incredible what they did. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I think I echo your guys' sentiments. I think for me that there's two sort of things that have been floating around my head actually since I was at that game in France, and me and my brother were talking about it, the day afterwards, sort of trying to digest that game. And I think the first thing is that I think you mentioned it, Jerome. I think Springbok fans and I certainly accept the fact that we certainly got the rub of the green in a couple of different ways. Whether that's the bounce of the ball, whether that's an interpretation from a referee in one way or the other. I don't think that was a huge swaying factor, but at the end of the day, I think that the margins of these games were just so fine, that any different interpretation or a ball bouncing differently or a player literally falling, I think, Carl, you and I spoke about it, like a player falling 10 centimeters in one direction or the other. We're talking about 3 games where we got through by a single point. So I think as fans, I've certainly, I think you have to embrace that. And I think it speaks to also why there's been so much vitriol and backlash from some angry, you name it, Irish, English, New Zealand, whatever fans.
French
in particular. When the margins are that small, it's very easy to go and look at a particular incident and say, well, that's why you won the World Cup. And okay, so I think as South Africans, we have to embrace that. And but having said that, like, there is something undeniably and unbelievably special about this team that has been playing for like the last essentially 5 years together. And whatever that special source is, and we can get into that. I think everyone knows it. I think that the majority of world rugby can see it and knows it. There's no doubt that is what got us through those 3 incredibly tough games and through the World Cup. It's something sort of slightly intangible, and that is what really makes a special team. So I'm really trying to soak in this moment, because you just don't really know how long these things last, with a group of players like this and a coaching team, and as I say, the bounce of the ball. So yeah, it's just a spectacular moment for us, and it's really been hard to believe, to be honest. I feel like I've had to go back
and well deserved as well. I mean, you can see how hard these Oaks have worked. I mean, specifically the last few weeks. I mean, the pressure that the Oaks were under. I mean, after they beat the French, they had the French public were all over them. Yeah. Suddenly the French public were supporting England, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, they've hated them for 1,000 years.
Exactly.
Which was against my prediction on the podcast, even.
I mean, it would be against anyone's prediction. Yeah. But I mean, the French fans got so flippin' sour with the team, which they might come to regret when they travel to South Africa. In fact, I definitely won't forget. I'll be booing as hard as I can when Antoine Dupont runs on the field. No, absolutely no doubt. But I think it all of these things just made it extra special. The fact that these Oaks are having a wine and all of that. I mean, how many times have All Black fans told us that South Africans always argue about the ref after they lose? Now it's classic. I mean, there's Irish sites and everything just having a go at us. And as I say, we're just collecting tears. It's fantastic.
Just one thing to say. I mean, and I know it's hard because when you lose, it's tough, right? But if it's one thing I really learned this World Cup, and I've been a perpetrator of this, I can say that for a fact. There's nothing worse than a sore loser, right? Because no one cares. You can whine and cry and moan, and you only make yourself look bad, unfortunately.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, it's sport, right? You're going to be on the winning side. You're going to be on the losing side. It's just innate. Someone has to win. Someone has to lose. And you can go and cut things 100 ways. And you can say, look, the refs could have been better maybe, but, to really boo and to go on like the French did and how the English went on. And
it's embarrassing.
Crazy. But half of what you said as well, it was funny when the whole Bongi thing happened and Tom Curry last week. And I kind of thought, shit, like maybe this is, it was weird. I actually, for the first time, thought, shit, I think maybe this is meant to be. It's like all these stories, right? All these crazy stories. I mean, it's like the most ridiculous thing that happened with that Tom Curry thing. I was absolutely like just so confused what was going on there. And it like kind of reminds you again of like 95 and all the crazy stuff that went down that year, you know, and well, that World Cup, right? And I think that kind of thing started, you know, knocking around in my head saying, sheesh, I don't know, these guys are just, I don't know, there's a word for it in Afrikaans, a bit of hondvark, dog pig, you know, backs against the wall, you know, there's just, they want it so badly, they fight for each other. And as you say,
us against the world.
Yeah, as you say, it's like an intangible thing. It's hard to like teach it, right? It's just something you kind of develop over a period of time, and it's kind of inherent in you.
It's almost and now I am going to bring a golf reference into this. This is incredible. But I was listening to some of the European guys speak after the Ryder Cup, and they were saying, I mean, and Jerome, I don't know how familiar you were with what happened in the Ryder Cup, but on that Saturday evening, there was a bit of an altercation between Rory McIlroy and one of the American players' caddies, and the feedback from the European guys was like, they were like, that was the best thing that could have happened to them, because they had got out to a bit of a lead, and there was a potential for them to become a little bit complacent, you know, on Saturday night and sort of claim the victory already. And they said they went into that change room and they were all like fuming, and they were, and it basically, it fueled their fire. So yeah, I mean, I think sometimes this adversity it's like, it fuels us, you know.
There's no better than a common enemy, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I want to just sort of we'll have a little bit of structure to our chat, but just talking specifically about the final, and kind of the game plans, and that you saw, what game plan you thought us in New Zealand were going to go in with, and how those were executed. How did you see that play out, Jerome?
Yeah, look, I mean, so it's a tricky one, right? New Zealand has been trying to make the rest of the world play their game for years, and whenever you do, you found wanting. And we've also been on the receiving end of a lot of close games with them, where have been pretty heartbreaking. So, and I think with Rassie coming in, he's been so determined in terms of, this is what we're good at, and we are going to, you know, even if other people know what we're going to do, that is what we're good at, right? And I think, you know, you've heard a lot about, you know, a lot of noise about the way we play and all of that. And firstly, it's a misperception, right? You know, media talks the way they want to so that they can, you know, feed an agenda. But the second thing is that, you know, we've got to play to our strengths. You look at that Twickenham game a few weeks before the World Cup. I mean, it was just complete and utter domination up front. And that's where you saw the weakness, right? The New Zealand team hasn't got their best pack, but, you know, they've got good loose forwards and a hell of a back line, right? So if you want to go toe-to-toe with them, you're going to come off second best every single time. And the beauty of rugby is that everyone plays different ways, right? I mean, if everyone played like the All Blacks, then it would also not be interesting. The different styles, and that's the same in football, right? All different countries, you have Brazilians who play a certain way, and, you know, the Germans play a certain way, often will tell you. So you know, there's beauty in that too. And I think they got it spot on. I think, you know, our bench and the 7-1 split and coming on, you know, Kwagga having a huge impact again. Dion Fourie, look, his lineouts weren't great, but around the park he was excellent. A couple of turnovers. You got Ergia Snyman. You know, you look at a guy like Jean Klein. I mean, 4 years ago he was playing for Ireland, the World Cup, and here he is for South Africa. But I think they got a spot on. I think the rain also kind of forced them into that. I think maybe they would have looked to do something a bit different potentially if there wasn't rain. But again, it would have always been a case of, you know, slow poison, right? You do the forwards up front, get the bomb squad on, and then you maybe look to score a few tries. But having said that, we also had a couple of opportunities on Saturday. Just thinking about it, I mean, that one
Big time,
he came around, he almost scored, and then it was also Sia Khaleesi where he probably should have passed, right?
Beginning of the second half.
Yeah, he probably should have passed.
He was pretty much over the line, yeah.
And those were proper opportunities for tries. So I think it's always a misperception. I think it's, people want to say what they want to say to kind of make themselves feel happy. So instead of saying, they didn't deserve whatever, they'll just say they play rubbish rugby or something like that. So it shouldn't really take it too seriously. I think at the end of the day, I think we got our tactics right. We did it perfectly. And I suppose hindsight's easy, right? If we might be sitting here if we had lost and maybe say something different. But I think Rassie, Ninaba and Felix Jones and all the Oaks, I think they got a spot on.
Yeah, just touching on what you say there, it's interesting that we do seem to be one of the few teams in world rugby that can pull New Zealand into playing our game. And, it's interesting because it doesn't seem like in the past that we've been capable of doing that against all teams. Sometimes we were guilty. I know against Australia, it used to be incredibly frustrating. Some of those away games. Yeah. We just we couldn't pull them into that arm wrestle, and certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, the games. I mean, if you go and look at the results between South Africa and New Zealand, they're incredibly close. I mean, outside of maybe 1 or 2 blowouts, the games have been incredibly close, and I thought we did that perfectly. On Saturday is just not giving them any space, pulling them into a bit of an arm wrestle, and and then just making it a war of attrition. I think if that kick at the end of who was it, Geordie Barrett, if that goes over and we lose by 2 points, then we look back and we go, Sia's try and whatever, that's the position we would be in, but that's not what happened, and we managed to pull them into a tight kind of arm wrestle-ish game. That's how I saw it. I don't know about you, Hoff.
Yeah, I mean, what Jerome says is interesting about rugby being played different ways. I think if you listen to the media and that kind of narrative. I mean, guys were saying that New Zealand needed to win, and that if New Zealand wins, then rugby is the winner because we play such horrible rugby and that. What a load of shit, absolute bullshit. If you want to watch a sport with a rugby ball shape that is very predictable, go watch rugby league. There's a game that exists there. If you're worried about scrum penalties, go watch rugby league. There's so many different ways of playing this game, and we've exactly, got Rassie in. He's seen what we're good at, and the New Zealand play expansively. We don't. We use brute force. Not that we can't play expansively, by the way. I mean, we've scored some really, really good tries in this tournament. But I think it was quite obvious how we were going to play as soon as we chose a 7-1 split, and I think that was the right way to go. So I was really worried about Dion Free, and those worries came to the fore within like a minute and a half of that game starting.
The lineouts were an absolute disaster.
Disaster, especially in the second half. When we were under so much pressure and we freaking put our bodies on the line and defended and got out of there only to lose a lineout. It was quite frustrating. But as you say, he did play well in the other parts of the field. Look, what I will say with the tactics, I think we got it absolutely spot on in the first half. Specifically, not only were we out the blocks quickly and extremely physical and all of that kind of thing, which is what you expect from the Springboks, but we employed that French game plan of kicking bombs on their wings. And I think that worked absolutely brilliantly. I have no idea why that game plan disappeared in the second half. We seemed to revert to Faf only box kicking in the second half, and that didn't really work, I think, and quite understandable. The second half became like, let's hang on. We've got a lead. Let's hang on. And the second half started so well with Sia being in that position to score a try. I think if he had, it would be the game would have been a different story. And I was like, oh my word, we're going to absolutely dominate these Oaks like we did at Twickenham. And then it just freaking turned, But defense wins you World Cups, and the Oaks defended. I couldn't believe the defense, actually. I mean, Peter Steph du Toit, my word, that oak absolutely ate Geordie Barrett 3, 4, 5 times.
Probably why I
maybe
missed
more.
the kick.
Probably why I missed the kick. I mean, Kurtley Orence's tackle on Rico Iwani was absolutely insane. And, you know, there were so many more. So, yeah, I think overall we got the tactics. What's up?
Sorry,
Jean
we got a real rugby expert joining us
We
now.
had a guest appearance.
Shock.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall we got the tactics spot on. You know, as I say, specifically in the first half. But
Yeah.
we held on, so we got it right.
Yeah, 100% right. The half. I think we did go into our shells a bit in the second half. And I don't know whether it. Yeah, I mean, look, those kind of sideways bombs worked so well against France. And as you said, in first half against New Zealand. I don't know. I probably haven't looked at it as in depth as I could have to see what we didn't do. I don't know.
I thought that there were two things. I thought that really you could see the attrition of the previous week started taking its toll on some of our guys.
Sure.
There's no doubt.
For sure.
I was surprised.
Damien Dearlindy looked absolutely stuffed.
Yeah, and
he looked completely stuffed.
I was surprised that there wasn't the bomb squad was not the usual kind of like bring like 5 oaks on at once, you know.
And even like Visa came on so late.
We brought guys on in drips and drabs, and I don't know whether that had to do with Dion Fourie, you know, with the Bongi injury, and you know the tactics around that. And I know Essia got a card, so. But that was a little surprising because we didn't quite have that same because the guys were clearly like completely fucked, and then to be so fair to New Zealand though, when after the Sam Cane got that card, there's no doubt those guys just lifted themselves up to another level. Like they really all started playing at like 10-15% bigger levels. So it was kind of those two factors which. I mean, what an engrossing like second half. It was outrageous that you know, we didn't score a point after like the 34th minute, and we still came out winning. It was completely wild.
But I think people also forget though that a lot of these, you know, these I don't know, I don't want to call them media, but whatever these Instagram pages and all of that seem to just exist to piss off Springbok fans. What they forget is how dominant we were in that first half. I mean, that first half was an outrageously good performance.
For sure.
And I was pretty bleak that we were only 12-6 up. I think we deserved more, and there were a few occasions where we weren't necessarily like over the line or we should have scored or whatever, but we were camping there, and you could see as soon as the penalty was given away, it was a victory for New Zealand because they gave away 3, not 5, not 7. And they got away with a few little professional fouls here and there. If we're talking about reffing, I mean, sure, we got the luck of the draw at the end of the day on the reffing side. I don't think incorrectly, but I mean, as you say, I mean, that second half was just survive. Every time, you know, Faf tried to keep the ball in and threw it between his legs. I mean, I'm like screaming at the TV, just get like a huge guy like Oxenchair to fall on it and take your time. You know, don't put up a bomb. Just keep the ball. But
you see,
it was.
You see, you know, thinking about it now, like, you know, the difficulty, and this is why we lost in Auckland earlier this year, was also like our set piece. You know, if we want to beat New Zealand, we've got to go upper hand set piece. We've got to be taking them in the lineouts, and we've got to be punishing them in the scrums, and we've got to win the rucks. And I feel like that's where we weren't necessarily having an upper hand in the second half. And maybe that also affected it. Not necessarily only just the kicks, but we were struggling to get that dominance, right? That front foot.
That lineout, losing those lineouts was huge. It was huge.
I mean, you can't win a game at that level and lose that amount of lineouts. So that was a serious concern. We had no other option, right? We just I was like, I don't know, throw it, like do a little short pass to Kitself at the front, but you can't do that every time either, right? So you know, a lot of our games we've had such scrum dominance, and we didn't really have that. I think New Zealand were exceptionally solid in the scrums. So
Yeah.
I think that also was tricky for us because we couldn't overcome that. I think in the first half we had at least, didn't lose as many lineouts. Sure, scrum was fairly, parity, but, generally I think how we work is you do the slow poison first half and then you just ram it around the second, and I don't think we could do that. But geez,
But
hang on.
I think the scrum being so even as it was, I mean, there wasn't a single scrum penalty. Actually, for me, made it a lot better because a lot of people were saying we beat France because of scrum penalties, we beat England because of scrum penalties. So to beat the All Blacks without a single scrum penalty, I'll take that every day of the week.
For sure. And I must say I didn't necessarily always back New Zealand scrum. They've got quite a few youngsters there now in the front row, but geez, they've done a job, that new forwards coach, and even throughout the tournament, line out scrum improved immensely.
Look, I must say, I mean, their fans, the riffraff fans in the comments online and all of that, obviously don't deserve a mention, but that All Black team is class, I must say.
Oh yeah.
They've come from dark situations over the last few years, people doubting them and that, but their Oaks are, you can see after they lose, they're obviously gutted, but their comments and the way they handle themselves and all of that, I mean, they're epic. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, Adi Savia, he's some of the stuff I've been reading online about him and all of that. I mean, they are a class outfit. I'm not gonna lie.
No, 100%.
I don't like Ian Foster.
100% agree. 100% agree.
Let's get into that reaction side now, and this is where I'm definitely going to pull in our third guest who's just joined us, JDV. Good evening, son. You are on mute at the moment. There we go. Good evening.
Evening. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't get the classic rub of the microphone that marred your first rugby pod. But I did want to say that it was nice to come in at sort of 7 minutes in from my guest appearance. It's like getting on a treadmill when it's going at sort of 30 kilometers an hour and you get shot off the back. So I feel like by sitting on here for a bit, I'm able to catch a bit of a run up.
Warmed yourself up.
Yeah, no. Look, I think from a reaction perspective, from someone who's a very casual rugby viewer, yes, it was difficult to. I think Hoff, you and I were talking about it the other day. Difficult to sort of marry the idea of wanting to support France if they had beaten us, but then seeing how against the Springboks France and that stadium was, listening to the shouts of All Blacks sort of ring out throughout the stadium during the game, the cheers, the whistles, the boos when South Africa had the ball. Yes, it just made it so much sweeter when we did win. And I know he's not everyone's favorite, but sort of when they showed Novak in the crowd, that's what he's been going through. If you're the best, you've got to, and you're the best with the crowd behind you, the crowd against you, it almost makes you even better.
There's no doubt that the Springboks probably fed off that. And they had it for a couple of weeks because, they had it basically since that quarterfinal. Jacques, just tell us personally, at a personal level, which game did you kind of like shit off for the most? Like when you were watching, like, which injury time was worse for you?
Well, Terence, I'm glad you're asking at a personal and not a professional level, because my professional rugby career, where I was captaining the 8s or the 9s at Maritzburg College, probably wouldn't give me much cred.
Although you were a referee of some under 12D games at Kingswood.
Yeah, Hoff, you might want to tell that story where I basically had to concede
after a night of rats and parrots.
No, the one under 11 kid. So they took a penalty. Sorry to digress, but this is worth it. This is my rugby knowledge for you. So I was reffing the under 11 A's. I think I'd been promoted from reffing like under 13 C's or something. So I was reffing the under 11 A's, which was a big match. And anyway, the guys had a penalty. And as the guy went to kick the penalty, all the other opposition team ran the penalty down. And still the under 11 comes to me. He's like, excuse me, sir, like very politely, are they allowed to chase down a penalty? And I was like, no, I'll watch for it next time.
Next time.
Yeah.
that was, I probably would have been abused like Ben O'Keefe by the opposition side, I imagine, after that.
I'm surprised you didn't have some parents abusing you from the sideline. Is that
it just made the under 11A Kingswood win that much sweeter for Jacques?
Yeah, well, not much sweeter for me. I was very neutral half. I was very neutral half. It didn't matter which two teams were playing. I was calling it like I saw it.
Did you give any penalty tries in the game?
Probably. I mean, I remember the one time. I mean, I think the one time I was like, I think the one opposition coach didn't want to shake my hand because I basically blew the side offside every single time they got the ball. Or sorry, we got the ball. But I think France.
You give refs a bad name, Jacques.
Well, probably a good name because they can see how shit they can be.
Fair enough.
So I'd probably say France, Terence. I think for me that was, it meant the difference between, to be honest, I thought we were going to breeze past England. So for me, that France game was basically, we're going to be in the final. And I know that we gave Ireland and France and everyone a lot of shit saying, well, when Ireland got through the pools, they were saying who they'd rather meet in the final. But genuinely, I was saying, okay, well, France is big. It's whether we get to watch another 2 weeks of rugby or not, essentially. I would say I was shitting myself mainly for that France game, but for very different reasons.
Yeah, I would probably put myself in that camp. I think it was, although I was doing okay in the All Blacks game, and then literally the last 3 minutes, I actually just almost quiche out completely because I think the whole 6 weeks just caught up with me, and I was almost like pulling a Cheslin Colby with my head covered with a curtain, I just couldn't do it. But I think a lot of that was based on what France was saying, and I wanted to pull in your perspective there on refereeing, and I think rugby does have a problem with this unbelievable vitriol reaction to referees. It really, and I think as South Africans we need to take note of this. And you touched on it, Jerome. We, us being on the positive side of these results, I think we must take note of this for future games when it doesn't go away, because really it's just terrible for the game and the image of rugby to have so much anger and vitriol at these guys who really, I think, are doing an incredible job. And I know, we spoke about this at the beginning of the tournament. Carl and I had some concerns around, the high tackle law. It felt like it was stifling those early pool games. But I must say, I really got on board by the end of the tournament with the TMO process that they were following. With the bunker situation, and I think that in general, you got much fairer outcomes out of. I don't think anyone can argue that there were much fairer outcomes out of this World Cup than any previous World Cups. There were where decisions were made 100%, and that was it. There was no going back on them. So
yeah,
it looked like it got more consistent as the tournament went on as well. I don't know if it was just less games, so there's less of a sample size, but
no,
it did feel like it got a little bit more consistent.
No, I think I agree with you, Jacques. I think I agree with you. I mean, there's a few things that stand out for me, right? And I think will come the player safety thing. I think, in terms of being strict on high tackles, try telling that to Peter Steph Toy. And I mean, if you saw last year when he got, or was it I can't remember what game it was against France, when he got sent off for that one thing and he was absolutely distraught. And you saw him in the final, 28 tackles, and Geordie Barrett, he was taking names. Geordie Barrett got absolutely smashed. And every single one of those tackles were completely legal, but he was hammering them. So you can see, it can still be a hell of a tough, hard game, but it can be below the head, which is where the danger lies. But
margins are
100%.
tight.
And the margins are tight, and you do get it wrong, right? But the more that you put pressure on, the better. And it was interesting to see, if you look at how many red cards and yellow cards the All Blacks got, and I think it's probably two reasons. One, Super Rugby and all of that, they don't have the same rules, right? You get a red card, it's that 20 minutes thing, and they're not as the refs aren't as strict on the high tackles and all of that, because they're quite influenced by rugby league, for example, and that showed ultimately, because if you're playing like that on a daily basis outside of those rules, when you come to the World Cup, you're gonna hurt, and I think that they paid the price. And you compare that to how many cards we got overall, I mean, it's incomparable, right? And the second thing is, I mean, their coach doesn't even know the rules. Honestly, Ian Foster, in the press conference afterwards, was still flabbergasted how you see a Khaleesi got a yellow and Kane got a red. I mean, the fact that he is so unclear and he's the head coach of New Zealand is like baffling. And all due respect to Fozzie, I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but it's just that is part of that's part of the biggest reason why there is this thing, is because, and it's the same in the media. I mean, you listen to some of these podcasts and some of the guys, they have absolutely no clue what the rules are, and they make these outrageous statements. Haskell in the rugby pod, in the British rugby pod.
Oh, Mike Tyndall.
Haskell's a shocker. I mean, he was going on about how that English scrum penalty shouldn't have been. I mean, Genge's knee was on the ground. I mean, it's absolutely clear as day. Like, so the media also like gives such a bad name, because these are like pundits and guys you look up to, and should be held to a high standard, and they don't even know the rules, and they're just talking rubbish, and they fuel the fire, right? And the coaches. I mean, Fozzie, honestly, to not know the difference between Khaleesi's and Kane's red and yellow in the press is just.
But Jerome, he definitely does know the difference. Do you not think that's a situation of him sort of playing it up to
I don't think he's that kind of.
Maybe
I don't think he's that kind of coach. To be honest,
Jacques, it's a good point. It's a good question. Like, and I was trying to also give him the benefit of the doubt to some extent, like you say. But I don't know. Like, it just doesn't. Like, I don't know, the way he said it. It just seemed like he said, like, it's crazy how you can have two different decisions in the same scenario or something like that. And you're just like, well, they weren't. They were completely different. If you read the rules, you would know. I don't know, but it could also just be a bit of, let's be honest, a bit of sour grapes and trying to stoke the fires. I don't know. But it's irresponsible.
I honestly believe sometimes with these things that there's a genuine, and there's probably some sort of scientific term for this, but there's a genuine bias that people have when they are viewing some of these incidents. They are literally not seeing, like, their eyes are literally like playing tricks on them. They're literally trying to see, and when everything's in super slow mo, that the guys will be like, oh, there it is, there's the head contact, they just are not being objective.
It's called a Mark Cueto bias. That's what it is. You don't get more bias than that moment in 2007. But I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Terence. I mean, this is rugby. This is the one sport where this shouldn't happen, and referees are getting lambasted. I must say, I'm still not a huge fan on the rule as it is, but I do agree that as the World Cup went through, it got more consistent. I think there was a clearer understanding of why it was in place, how it was in place. I mean, as soon as that Sam Cane incident happened, I was like, that's red. It has to be red. And similarly with Sears' incident, and maybe I've got Mark Cueto glasses on this time, but I was like, there's enough mitigation there. It's not going to be red. And I think those incidents, and we talked about it on prior pods, is exactly what we were trying to get was, okay, well, what is the mitigation? What isn't mitigation and all of that? And I thought it was flippin' clear as day. And thumbs up to those refs for having the balls to make the calls that they need to make and not looking at it and going, this is a final, we can't send off New Zealand skipper. It's a red card, it's a red card.
100%,
and at the end of the day, Oak's also having a huge go at Wayne Barnes. That wasn't Wayne Barnes' decision.
It wasn't even the TMO's decision.
Exactly.
It was a dude sitting 15 kilometers away in a literal bunker.
Oaks are freaking
in the Paris bunker.
Oaks are freaking idiots. They're idiots. And there's an Irish page as well called Rugby Smacks. I don't know if you follow it, Jerome, but this he must be the worst rugby pundit and
Is that the one? Is it linked to that off the ball?
Unfollow.
I don't think it's off the ball.
Oh, it's another one.
But he's an absolute clown, and Yeah, Terence told me I should unfollow him, but if I unfollow him, then he's got the victory over me, so I don't want to unfollow him. But at the same time, he pisses me off.
You
But,
know, half.
you know,
I feel like
half
he's got the W over you right now by you following him.
But I mean, this oak is just he's just unreal, and it's this whole thing of like, if the one's red, the other one's red, and it's the most retarded comment you could ever make with that kind of thing. It really is, and he's the same guy that took a picture of a scrum, that last scrum against England, and said, you know, drew a line on who was our tight head, Koch drew a line and said, doesn't get more obvious than this, and it was only when BJ Buerta responded and said, look, let me just explain why this is a penalty that you know, he took a step back, notwithstanding the fact that, you know, the refs don't have drone goggles in their eyes to see a scrum from the top. So yeah, I thought the officiating was, we got a bit of the rub of the green, but I thought it was spot on, to be honest. I thought every decision was right. Colby's was a yellow, Sears was a yellow. The first one for New Zealand was maybe a bit touch and go, but probably yellow as well. Yeah.
Yo, you see, I must say, I thought that first one was a clear yellow. To me, that was a less than the guy falling on Mbonambi's leg, was the way that he had like grabbed him basically around the neck. It looked to me like it was like a neck roll.
Look again.
So
under the
I think all those cards were done correctly. Personally, I would have preferred a level down. So to me, and I agree with you, Carl, in terms of the rules, to me, the Sam Cane incident, I would like to see that as a yellow card. And Sears, to me, I would like to be seen that classified as like a rugby incident, because there's far much more mitigating circumstances there. But I mean, the rules are what they are, and I think they got them right. Just kind of rounding out now on the reaction side. I think there is a huge, obviously, there is a lot of negative stuff out there. I do also think that the negative stuff gets a lot of amplification as well. You know, there's no doubt that that it's easy to find, and guys love, people love sharing it with each other. I will also say I have found a huge amount of really objective, positive coverage, and that's been one of the big pluses for me coming out of this World Cup. I must say, I found some really great content providers. A lot of them are UK-based guys. And they've just had incredibly objective views on all the games from the quarterfinals, the semis. I think Jim Hamilton and the pod and
Jim Hamilton's class, boy. Absolute
I think they've been
I was
incredible.
About to say, I mean, we basically laughed at Andy Good for his whole career, but that pod is really lacking.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Jim Hamilton and him, they get it right most of the time. The good, the bad, and the rugby, they don't get it.
No, they're shocker. The Australian one is quite lekker though.
Yeah, G-Bra is good. G-Bra's
but
good.
Jim Hamilton, I know he loves South Africa, so maybe we're a bit biased, but he is quality. Absolutely.
I think also, being close to the players and that, you get to meet the guys. I think some of these British journalists who have no sort of contact with the players. I mean, they're also the same journalists who light their own guys on fire when they lose like one or two games. 100%. So you got to remember who they are.
Justin Marshall also deserves a bit of a shout out. He's also pretty good.
Yeah, he's always been a very fairly objective guy. There were actually two other things on social media that I wanted to kind of give a shout out that I've discovered during this World Cup. The one was the egg chasers. I don't know if you guys have followed them or followed that guy's content.
I've seen it come up on my feed, but I haven't really gone into it. So
he does the Egg Chasers is actually a podcast which has been going on for years in the UK. Also very good, and I thought they had very good views on the final. But one of their guys basically hired a camper van and basically he tried to go to every single World Cup game. And I think he went to 25 World Cup games or something. And what he would do every morning is he'd do a video, a vlog, the morning after. And it would just be him walking through the streets of wherever he was, bumping into fans. And then he'd have a coffee and he'd sit down and he'd analyze the game. And super
Living the
good
dream.
content. Yeah, I think he was kind of living the dream as well, and I think he met so many awesome fans, and just really different sort of content, but good analytical stuff as well. So wanted to give those a shout out. And then the rugby guy, I don't know if you guys follow him on Instagram.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
I think his name's
he
Jared,
always wears the jersey.
Jared Harris.
Yeah, he's a classic.
But I mean, what a great! I know he's a South African guy, but he really is pretty objective.
Sort of.
Yeah, I was going to say, are we sure about that?
Yeah, and I think what I really loved is the way that he covered the rugby was in just such a positive way. It was all about the fans and meeting people on both sides, and to me that's what the game of rugby is about. Is that rugby's a game where fans have a beer afterwards. It's not football. And honestly, when I was there and watching the game, that was happening even after that French game. So maybe not all the fans, not all the French fans, but there were French guys out having beers with us, and so
good to know.
Yeah,
guys,
I'm still gonna boo Antoine Dupont though when it comes to South Africa.
Just unfollow that Irish guy though, Hoff. You're in a corner there.
I can't give him the victory over me.
I want to go on now, guys, and move away a little bit from
Terrence,
the
Terrence, you just quickly, you've got to know that Hoff's being hit with the social dilemma algorithm. Where the more hate he clicks on, the more hate he receives. So I think Hoff, you're a sucker for your own punishment and giving yourself. Feeding the algorithm for all of that negative feedback in the in the rugby comments that you're reading.
Feeding the python, boy.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, Huff. You sort of like your own worst enemy there. I think it's sort of like running backwards from from 20 massive army tanks, and you've got a little revolver. There's no way out of the situation. I think just lay your arms down, and those army tanks will disappear.
Nah, you just gotta reply with a tears emoji to every comment that he has.
It's like Ben Smith. You just got to
Hoff's gonna
reply
start
with
getting hit by a Russian
that
bot.
fish rod emoji.
But just on another note, how funny is it that we absolutely fucking smoked the Kiwis in the cricket today as well? I mean, that's gonna. I mean,
classic.
We haven't beaten them in the Cricket World Cup match, I think, for 25 years. There's some ridiculous.
I think it was 99.
stats.
I think was the last time. Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable that they've been a bogey team for us, and I mean, we drubbed them today. It was really, really unbelievable. So yeah, let's see if they blame the TMO for that one. I don't think so. But guys,
umpire's call. They'll start blaming umpire's call.
Talking about now, I want to talk a little bit about sort of the legacy that this team's going to leave, the South African team, in terms of the team and the coaches. Obviously, it's going to be a really tough act to follow, going forward. How do you see this team being remembered? I don't know, in 10, 20, 30 years. Jerome, maybe I'll ask you to give your perspective on that.
For me, it's probably pioneers, breaking barriers. It's probably our first team even still quite a way to go, but first team where, Rassie came in and said, embrace transformation and said, we've got to turn around, right? We live in a country and we can't have, 13 white guys and 2 guys on the wing. 2007. It's not reflective of our country. And we've got to get buy-in, and he embraced it. And I think, proof is in the pudding. No one's talking about that anymore. He completely embraced it. And I think, to inspire the next generation, you have guys like Sio, who's just an incredible leader. And for, young guys coming from underprivileged backgrounds can see what you can achieve, right? And I know sometimes it can be a bit soft and touchy, and but honestly, that is what happens in life, right? This little kid, he's probably was running around in his back garden afterwards, believing that he is Sia Khaleesi, and he maybe would never have played rugby otherwise before. So for me, in 20, 30 years, if you look at it with a glass half full kind of way, I think they're going to be remembered as really breaking barriers and being pioneers in that, in terms of just completely breaking down that barrier, being excellent, being transformed, being diverse, embracing that whole diversity along the way, and showing you what you can achieve if you all put your focus towards a common goal, right?
Yeah, geez, that's. I think you've really hit the nail on the head there.
Everyone a poster.
I sure. I was giving some thoughts. I saw a comment on. I think it was. I was maybe a little bit in the negative Twitter space, Carl. With you there, and there was some guy who was had. I think Sonny Bill Williams had put up a quote around congratulating the Springboks and whatever, and some
good man.
Some Kiwi guy had said, "Well, how does this help people? How does this victory help people in poverty? Just explain it to me." And I think he kind of laid it out, essentially saying, he
told his story.
I was a kid who came from an underprivileged background, and seeing what people could achieve on TV inspired him to be able to become a professional player so that he could afford to buy a house for his parents, and it struck me that how many millions of people's were just lives and transform, maybe a super strong word, but even if your life was transformed for a day or two, or hopefully for some people it'll be for much longer, and by seeing a team on TV perform at the highest level, that is reflective of the reality of our reflective of our country, and just seeing the excellence and the team spirit that's created in that, and I think the other thing that feeds into that is also, I think, other South Africans not just watching the team but watching other fans engage and embrace the team. So I've got a lot of joy out of watching other people's celebrations of the winning the games, and 100%. Watching people at the airports, and that's brought me a huge amount of satisfaction outside of just us winning the game. And I just think that is a really that sort of feeds everyone else who's kind of watching that process. So obviously it's hard to quantify. It's going to be hard to quantify down the line, but it's just undeniable that this is going to be an immensely positive team that for kind of not just without getting too profound, not just the future of rugby in this country, but hopefully, to some degree, the perhaps the slight repairing of some older wounds, and bringing the country to slightly more middle ground. I think we're still a very polarized place, and I think we probably always will be. But seeing fellow South Africans celebrating in the streets of all sizes and shapes and colors is a profound thing. When let's be honest, 20 years ago that wasn't the case. There were 99% of the people who supported the Springboks were a certain size and race and color, and I think hugely powerful and positive.
I think also to just add to it is the team aspect of it. It almost reminded me of when Germany won the World Cup, the Soccer World Cup, and everyone was talking about, Argentina have Spain and Cristiano Ronaldo, Portugal have Cristiano Ronaldo, and Germany have a team. And, you look at some of those teams that were named from this tournament, and I think or Team of the Year or whatever, and Eben Etzebeth was the only oak. And I was quite grated off by that at first. And then I think it might have been Jim Hamilton or one of those podcasts sort of mentioned, well, isn't it a bit of a tip of the cap to the South African team, actually, that they don't rely on a single guy. Like every single oak, every player in their team has a role, whether he's on the bench, whether he's in the stands, preparing the team during the week. They have just got down the whole team element better than anyone else. You can hook your captain off after 40 minutes. You can hook your 10 off after 30. You can take Eben Etzebeth, flipping Player of the Year nominee off. The Oaks don't bat an eyelid because everything is for the team. And guys are talking about, who's the greatest team of all time? Is it the All Black team of 2015, or is it this Springbok team? And the fact that, we can even have those conversations for a team that is as transformed as it is, as you say, is insane. I mean, these Oaks are the top of the world. And yeah, I mean, it is, as you say, it's super profound,
Yeah, and also a team that in 2017 that was getting like 50 points from from.
Well, I mean, you look at
that we played in the final. Lost to Italy.
What was it? Absa or Vodacom, I think it was, that dumped us. MTN came on board. We couldn't find sponsors. Now the Springboks is like a money-making machine, it seems, because 100%. We've got this brand and the identity and all of that, and that's not because of some marketing company. That's because of these Oaks, that have done the business on the field. So, yeah, I mean, it's epic to be talking about the team in this kind of way,
I mean,
pretty humbling.
It's obviously undeniable. I mean, I know Rassie's been a bit of a polarizing character, and a lot of people focus on the innovation that he's brought to the game, with his whatever it is, with the traffic lights, or with him being a water boy during the Lions team or whatever. But
the scrums in the 22s,
the stuff,
the classic.
But to me, I mean, it's fairly evident that his absolute superpower is that he's just like an unbelievable leader of men. He has pulled together and whether that's a leader within his coaching staff group, and then and bringing that culture on into his team. It's like you talk about football teams, Carl, and you see it all the time with these guys who pay the biggest prices for the best players. But I mean, you just get these teams sometimes that work, and they buy into it. You've got there's a humility in the team that buys into the coach. And so having that perfect blend and having, a coach who I know it was fortunate. I know this coach had worked with a lot of these players from when they were like sort of at like some of them even at like schoolboy level, So, yeah, I think special timing. I think probably difficult to replicate, but yeah, just I think I mean, I believe that Rassie's book is a really excellent read. I haven't read it, but I am going to try and do that. And it's pretty evident that his team are just incredible, humble leaders. And the outcomes have shown that.
And we've got to enjoy it because Jacques leaving, Felix Jones is going to England.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of the players will move on in that, which is the same for the All Blacks and quite a few of the other teams as well. So we've got to soak up this moment because
it doesn't always last.
Things can change quickly from if you look at 99 to 2003, there was some horror moments in between there. So got to suck this up.
Yeah, I mean, I know it is kind of
so Terence, can I ask a question here? So what do you think the legacy? I mean, the question that you had is, what is the legacy of this team? I mean, this is the legacy of the team for us. I mean, from South Africa, and it is a absolutely amazing legacy that they leave in South Africa. But I mean, have to pull you back down into the swamp that you found yourself on social media. I mean, what sort of legacy does this team have? Rassie, he might seem like a genius in South Africa. It seems like elsewhere he seems like he's living on the edge of the rules. A team that everyone's saying got lucky throughout. Do you think the legacy outside of South Africa of this team and of this World Cup is going to be seen in as glowing terms as we've seen it? Or do you think this could be a bit of a turning point in terms of how South Africa is viewed and their legacy going forward?
I think people with a brain will view Rassie as being one of the best coaches of all time. I think even if they don't like him or they he lives close to the rules or whatever, I think Rassie is completely undeniable. What he's done with this team is insane. I mean, from where we were to where we are now, it's mind blowing, to be honest. So I think and that is coming through on a lot of the sort of podcasts and that I've been listening to. The South African team has been a little bit less so, but the fact that guys are even talking about us in the same context of that 2015 All Black team means that it's in the conversation, which is fine. The rugby riffraff, what's that oak's name, Kieran Williams or whatever his name
Ben
is.
Smith. As well.
Obviously they're not going to view us in that light because they feel that we're undeserving. But I think, it's. I mean, Richie McCaw lived flipping close to the wind every single game that he played, and he's one of the greatest players, if not the greatest of all time. So I think Rassie, it's undeniable, but the Springboks is maybe there's a little bit more to debate there. But I mean, two back-to-back trophies, hardest World Cup to win, World Cup that Sir Clive Woodward said was definitely going north, and it's firmly here in South Africa. So. Luckily we're on the right side of the results, and history will remember it that way. Thank goodness.
Jacques, I think that I think sometimes the proof will be in the pudding, and just to steal what my brother said, I think to me the other day, which was imitation is sometimes the greatest form of flattery, and I think Rassie's brought a huge amount of innovation into our team, and I think the way we play has tried to be replicated by a few teams. So yeah, time will tell. Let's watch and see what some of the international teams do.
Even Sir Clive Woodward said that Rassie needs to be made director of rugby of England. So and he's
Clive Woodward needs a muzzle. Basically,
I don't want to use the same words that Bongi and Bonambi allegedly used, but that's case in point right there. So
well, exactly.
I think opinion is changing.
Hearing English guys talk about the one-dimensional South African game, and then you watch England play.
They didn't have one line break against us in the game they lost.
So I think for me that let's see what happens. I think there's some people who really just will always find it difficult to praise the Springboks regardless of what they do, but they may try copy them, down the line. So
yeah. I mean, you look at our own Farrell deals with the ref as opposed to like Ardie Savea or Sam Kane or Sam Khaleesi. I mean, it's different classes of humans.
The Northern Hemisphere is Dad Bigger, Johnny Sexton, same WhatsApp group.
I mean, what's fantastic for the Northern Hemisphere is that clearly, from the comments I've seen, the Irish fans are over the moon that they won their pool. So congratulations to them. And from the way the English rugby players seem to jump up and down and celebrate a simple like technical scrum penalty, we can give them those celebrations, but we'll take the World Cup.
Yeah, well done to Andy
I don't know if you're seeing
quarterfinal
watching.
Exit. Sorry, John.
Yes, Ford was probably the biggest proponent of celebrating scrum penalties I've ever seen in my life. I've never heard anyone cheering for scrum penalties like him, but it was a joy to watch with.
You obviously haven't watched Ben Earl.
Yeah, Ben Earl's a big culprit.
Okay, guys, just kind of two more things. Just talking about the future. Obviously we're going to have some sort of change in the coaching box of South Africa. Which how many of these players do you think have got another World Cup in them? And this, Jacques, we talk about copying South Africa and that. My goodness, like a guy like Deon Fourie has really thrown a cat amongst the pigeons, and I would imagine been a bit of an inspiration to a few players out there who may be in their sort of early 30s thinking about hanging up their boots with that type of like swan song of a career. But realistically, Jerome, with of our core key players, who's not going to be at the next World Cup for sure?
I think
besides Deon Fourie.
I think quite a few guys. I think Deon Fourie, Dwayne van Meulen. There's a couple of guys in the forwards. I mean, even guys like a Kitsoff and a Malherbe. I mean, they're going to be like 35, 36, right?
Yeah.
Even Etzebeth, Erkia will probably still be around. Sia is going to be about, I think also about 35, 36.
How old is Etzebeth now?
I think 32, 33 maybe. I'm
Okay.
guessing though. So like a lot of them are going to be in their mid-30s, right? They're going to be basically the age of Dwayne
32,
and Dion, which I think, you can have a few of those guys, but I think you can't have your core of your team like that. So I think we've got to rebuild. But you can, I think doing it gradually is the way to do it, right? You don't want to throw guys in the deep end like Eddie Jones did. I think that's also stupid and silly.
What do you know about rugby, mate?
Come along for the journey, mate.
Yes, that guy went down swinging.
Yeah, big time.
What was his parting shot? He said, "Some people have to eat shit so others can eat caviar." Mic drop. Boom. I'm out.
I saw that. So I think because I did see the other day a list of all the ages, and it actually shocked me quite a bit. I was like, geez, I mean, who's going to be left here? I mean, I was struggling to find, you know what I mean? So I think, but we've got lots of talent. We've got lots of guys waiting in the wings, and I think we've got to. It's now about trying to blend that experience and building a new base and a new core of experienced players over the next 4 years. And I think that's why it is key that a guy like the guys that have been involved, the Rassies and Stocker and Dion Davids and those guys are still involved, so that they can bring in the Evan Rooses and the Sasha and Ngome Zulu and all those guys. While keeping some experience there and not letting throwing lambs to the wolves, so to speak. So I think that's going to be key in the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Just kind of wrapping up on a sort of a more of a maybe a light-hearted note, but just in terms of the Rugby World Cup, this 2023 Rugby World Cup. I mean, was this the best ever World Cup in your opinion? I'll start off by saying I think we had some very strong feelings around the fact that they kind of basically cocked up the groups really when it came to the start of the tournament. The fact that they chose, I think they were based on rankings from 3 years ago or something. However, it did end up creating some very interesting sort of strength on strength tussles, both kind of in the pool games, and then we arguably had the best quarterfinal exhibition ever. So was this the best Rugby World Cup ever, do you think? And I mean, in terms of just the depth of the teams? Carl?
Well, I'm going to say yes purely because we won.
Just to feed the algorithm.
That's a good enough answer for me.
That's going to be on Instagram. I'm going to use that quote.
Let those guys come and comment on my page.
Let the Russian bots know.
100%. No, but I think it has to for a number of reasons. I think the quality of games, New Zealand, starting with New Zealand, France was obviously a big one. Actually ended up being a bit of a weird game, to be honest. It wasn't the greatest game. But Ireland, South Africa, absolute epic. Bang on with the quarterfinals. There hasn't been quarterfinals like that ever. Obviously, the semi-finals weren't great, but I think we got the final that we wanted. The two most successful sides in rugby history playing each other for the first time in a final since 1995. Two juggernauts going at each other. I think the French public.
Sorry, I've just said one other thing. That Fiji, Wales, Australia group was also quite a good one, I must say.
Yeah,
it was
probably
the most even group ever, right? I mean, Portugal eventually beat the guys who actually made the quarters, and Fiji beat Australia. Like everyone was beating everyone, so that was really cool.
So I think that the French public has a lot to do with it as well, because obviously if you've got 55,000 people watching Namibia, Uruguay, that is insane. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. But to your point, Jerome, I think what added to it was, the strength of the teams in this World Cup has been like no other, and I'm talking about top tier nations here, but also the bottom, what do you call them, second tier nations. Was insane. I mean, Fiji's performances were, they got worse and worse, of course, but that's because they don't have the squad. But they had some unbelievable performances. Georgia started slowly, but I mean, that Georgia-Fiji game was absolutely insane the way it ended. The way Portugal played was
Fiji,
unreal. I mean, they beat Fiji, for heaven's sake. It was, I think it had it had a lot of everything. If you listen to the pods and that, and people that were there, obviously they say that, once the Irish and the French were out, there was a little bit lost. But you wouldn't think so looking at the games. So yeah, roundabout answer, but I think it has to be, from an attendance point of view, and Samoa almost beat England, of course, as well. So I think all of that, were different parts of that jigsaw. It came together, unbelievably.
So,
it was an epic tournament.
T, I just wanted to add one thing quickly.
Jump in.
Even though the French stole the hosting of the World Cup, and who knows whatever came of that, right? I mean, old Bernard Laporte has sort of vanished into who knows where, probably living in some Switzerland mountain. But the French bring a unique atmosphere to rugby. Someone was telling me the other day, it's like they almost bring a football atmosphere. I might have even said it on the last pod. So, I mean, the World Cup was excellent. And yes, they got a bit of karma losing in the quarters because they stole the World Cup, but their fans didn't do it right. It was their administrators, the worst of all people. And I think it was incredible outside of that, right? Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Stadiums were great. Atmosphere was wonderful, and of course we won, so we're going to really enjoy it. As much just like the Spanish say that the 2010 FIFA World Cup was the best one.
Yeah, I think the proximity to obviously the home nations and the location of France makes a huge difference in terms of like essentially fans could come over. A lot of fans were coming over just for the weekend for games, or even for a night. Popping over from Scotland or Ireland or wherever. I mean, there's no doubt that it's sort of like the rugby central, as much as we hate to kind of admit it. Quite not bad for South Africans either, to be honest. I mean, gosh, how many thousands of South Africans flew over, to go watch? A hell of a lot better than trying to go to the USA or to Australia for a weekend, or Japan. Personally, I think the French fans were great. I think, as you say, they filled those stadiums. They brought a lot of character to them. I think you heard a lot of, after they got kicked out. I think I think you heard a lot of the sort of as I say, the bad eggs always get amplified. I think that's probably what came out. My experience being on the ground there was, even after that game, that most of the French people I spoke to were generally very magnanimous in defeats, and they had lost a bit of energy, but I think that got filled up by South African fans and other fans of the game. So yeah, I thought it was a brilliant World Cup. I wanted to run through three quick awards to see who you guys would give these to. So who do you think was the best sort of breakout team of the World Cup? Probably talking now about like a slightly lower tier team.
Probably Portugal.
Jerry? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that was exactly what I'd written down. I thought they were brilliant, and you hear some of those guys' stories. I mean, they're like most of them are amateurs,
Yeah,
the one guy is talking about
Mark Tadger,
going back to his dentist practice like 2 days after finishing the World Cup.
Yeah, but they're heroes now. Jeez, I mean, they had a hell of a welcome, and I was listening to the captain Appleton on a pod, and very lucky guy. And I mean, that's also they pioneers for Portuguese rugby, right? You look at Portuguese rugby in 20 years, if they kind of where Argentina were, let's say, also 20 years ago, this is the team you look at, in the same way that people look at that 2007 Argentina team. So
yeah, hopefully,
yeah.
Hopefully there's as we've spoken about before, hopefully the structures are there to get to uplift these guys and bring more sort of strength on strength games for them. Biggest disappointments for you guys of the World Cup, team wise?
Not Australia. You can revel in their misery.
I think it has to be Australia, to be honest.
Oh, really? I had Italy. I wrote Italy down.
It's
I don't really know
Italy for
what's
me,
happened.
I think,
I don't really know what's happened to
shot.
Italian rugby, but sure, I was expecting
really
a hell of a lot more from them.
I was really hoping that the answer to that question, and this was a pre-tournament hope, would be England. But I'd have to agree with Italy.
I think it's
It
Italy.
would have only been if England won. Biggest disappointment of the World Cup, England winning.
Japan having hosted.
getting out of their group.
Yeah, I mean, you look at where Italy's come from. Like, you really started seeing them turn a curve. I mean, it took them. I mean, it took Argentina. Japan's also. I was also thinking that as well. Yeah, Japan were also disappointed.
But I mean, it's
what about China?
Italy almost took 100 points.
Yeah, that was a shocker.
I'd say Italy.
But Jacques. But I agree with you. Japan's also in the conversation. I think they fell off the horse big time, boy, after 2019.
Okay, now I'm teeing up Mr. Hoffman for this next award here, and I'm really hoping you're gonna get your driver out here, Hoff. The most consistent team, not in this World Cup, but in World Cups. Team. Yeah, who's the most consistent team in World Cups?
In World Cups,
yeah, consistency.
Well, I mean, it has to be us, surely. I mean, what have we won? We've won 50%.
You missed it, Hoff. You missed it. You missed it.
Who finishes in the exact same position every single World Cup?
I was going to say, isn't it? It's got to be Ireland, Hoff.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I really thought you were going to hit this one out the park here, but Ireland once like again, another quarterfinal for Ireland.
The most. This has got to be like when Hoff.
There's no finishing position for going out in the quarterfinals, so that's probably tripped me up. I'm thinking
consistency.
Of like third place, second place.
Hoff, the bots are going to be so disappointed with you.
This is to get back to our golf roots. This is like when Hoff
you had your chance
to miss the whole ball and went underneath the golf.
No, well, we more consistent, Oaks. We more consistent at winning World Cups than they are at going out in quarterfinals. Let's be honest. So it has to be us, but. I'm glad your connection is so bad we can't hear that. But look, I mean, Ireland are consistently bad. I know where you're wanting me to go. So I'll say it just for the record because it is pretty profound, I think. But this is on Ireland's side. This is the greatest Irish side ever. It's their biggest chance to win a World Cup. I don't know if they're going to get another chance for another 40 years, 50 years, or whatever. I hope they don't. But it is the greatest Irish side of all time, and yet they honestly they're going to be remembered as history will remember them as exactly as good as the Irish side of any other World Cup.
That's brutal.
It's actually pretty classic. Yeah. Guys were talking about Johnny Sexton being better than Dan Carter and, who we're going to play in the World Cup. And, yet there they were 2 weeks to go and they're exactly where they were with 2 weeks to go in 2019 and 2015 and 2011. And, you got to earn the right to have World Cup arrogance. And they learned that the hard way.
Well, I tell you what, the Irish fans were pretty incredible that I interacted with, even though they were giving us a little bit of stick, rightly so, because they beat us in the pool game. But they I guess they maybe learned a bit of a hard lesson there. But I really hope that they have a strong side going to the Australian World Cup. I know there's a lot of Irish who live down under, and I think they bring from a Gears perspective, they bring a lot. They bring a lot of Gears to a World Cup. So.
I hope they get rocked.
A strong Irish side, I think, is good for the World Cup. They're going to have a huge amount of pressure on them though to get out of a quarter.
T. I don't know why I like fluctuate so much on the Irish. Like, the Irish people are just incredible people, and the country's so amazing. But then you just have a guy like Johnny Sexton, and it just kills you. You know what I mean? Like he's a knob, really. I mean, the way he behaved after that Leinster-Clermont, Leinster-Low-Shoal final.
After they lost to New Zealand.
After New Zealand. I mean, yes, he's like a petulant child. And I don't think Irish are generally like that. But, maybe this Irish side is going to be better without him,
I think he's a bit like, he's a bit like Farrell. I think, not only like 50% of the English fans actually like Farrell, and I think Sexton's a little polarizing. Although I think he's a bit more loved there than Farrell is. But anyway, guys, we've just cracked over 1.5 hours talking rugby, which is absolutely fine. This is not it's not going to be a once-off, but we may only record this pod again in like 4 years' time. Probably, most likely will. And we are going to get back to talking about golf at some point. I just wanted to give Jacques the opportunity to wish Gary Player happy birthday today.
Yo, that's, obviously, I mean, it was in the diary. I had a little birthday cake for him with how many 90 candles on it now? How old is the man? But happy birthday,
He doesn't
Gary.
eat cake, man. He eats like broccoli.
I was going to say it's a bed of cabbage with some candles in it. I know he's an avid listener to the Go Track, and I know he's definitely an hour and a half into rugby adjacent golf. Happy birthday, Mr. Player.
88 years old, guys. That's it.
Yo, I was actually quite close.
You were.
I'd love to know how regularly he beats his age. I would imagine it's probably pretty regular. But once again, just to remind everyone, just to feed the golf algorithm that we are a golf podcast. Happy birthday, Mr. Player. Gents, I want to leave it there. Jerome, thanks so much for your insights over the last couple of weeks. It's been super cool to have you on. And hopefully we can actually maybe play some golf at some stage.
Come to the Green Hills in Natal.
It's pretty much the only place to play golf. Maybe in winter is the best time, because right now you need a small canoe and a couple of paddles to get around our courses. It's very wet down here.
It's like the Scottish Highlands at the moment.
Yeah. I think the new drainage system at Durban Country Club is busy undergoing some real life simulation as to how effective it is, because it is very wet. I don't know what Cotswold's like, guys, but
well, you must ask Hoff. Hoff's got a key now on the dam levels there at Cotswold.
That's true, Hoff. Have you got the reservoir watch? Have you got sort of a Internet of Things sensor on that damn wall in case it bursts again?
Yeah, it's called anxiety. That's the sensor.
Yes, it's from one anxiety to the next.
No, it's ongoing. It's ongoing.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much. It's been really cool to chat. And,
thanks for having me on the show.
We'll chat golf soon.